with your guns and drums, and your drums and guns, with your guns and drums and drums and guns, halloo, halloo, with your guns and drums and drums and guns, halloo, halloo, with your guns and drums and drums and guns, the enemy nearly slew ya. My darling dear, you look so queer, Johnny, I hardly knew ya.
We're trying to get sanctuary for American soldiers who refused to fight in Iraq. There's about 50 soldiers here who were part of the campaign, and probably another 200 who are living here in Canada, because if they go home to the United States, they face jail time and a criminal record for refusing to fight in the war in Iraq.
Okay, so what do you want the government of Canada to do?
I want them to vote in favor of the motion that's coming before the House of Commons at the end of April. And the motion says that Canada will grant sanctuary to American war resistors and their families, and also cease the deportation proceedings that they've started against some of the war resistors. Well, the immigration system has changed dramatically since the 60s, so it's a lot harder for people to get residency in Canada, and you have to now apply from outside of the country, but they can't go home because they'll go to jail if they go home. So we're asking them to make a special provision for the war resistors so that they can get sanctuary from within Canada.
I thought that existed already. That's why they come here and apply here, no?
No, that's the problem. They're here and they've tried to go through the refugee process and been denied by the courts, well, the refugee board and then the courts. So now this motion is before the House of Commons to asking them essentially, as you said, to respect Canada's history of welcoming American soldiers who refuse to fight in illegal wars.
All right. How does it relate to the war in Afghanistan that Canada is doing right now?
I think there's all kinds of ways it relates, and there's all kinds of differences. I think the main thing is that this is a war, the war in Iraq is a war that the majority of Canadians didn't want us to take part in. The Liberal government of the time followed the lead of the majority of Canadians, and we didn't go to war in Iraq. So all we're asking the government to do is to continue the decision they made back in 2003, which is not to support the war in Iraq, which means for American soldiers that have come to the same conclusion as the majority of Canadians, welcoming them into Canada just like we did in the 60s and 70s with Vietnam War resistors. We know from standing on the street corners and going to schools and places like that the majority of people do want the war resistors to stay. There was a poll done in Ontario and it came down 62% were in favor of granting sanctuary to the war resistors.
Oh, where are your legs that used to run?
Oh, where are your legs that used to run?
Oh, where are your legs that used to run? Halloo, halloo.
Oh, where are your legs that used to run when first you went to carry a gun? I fear your dancing days are done, Johnny, I hardly knew ya.
My son, Corporal Jonathan Santos, was killed in Iraq on October 15th, 2004. And whenever I hear that there's an exhibit with his name on it, I have to come see. I have to come see. From the day, even before it started, I have been against this war in Iraq because we needed to have the consensus of countries all around the world. And for us as a nation to invade the country of Iraq and to hurt not only the people of Iraq, but to lose our sons and daughters, is just wrong. There is a better way, and we've got to find it.
You haven't an arm, you haven't a leg, halloo.
Haven't an arm, you haven't a leg.
You haven't an arm, you haven't a leg, halloo, halloo.
Oh, you haven't an arm, you haven't a leg.
You're an eyeless, boneless, chickenless egg.
And you'll have to be put with a bowl to beg. Johnny, I hardly knew ya.
They're rolling out the drums again, halloo,
Rolling out the drums again.
They're rolling out the drums again, halloo, halloo. Oh,
What are you doing here at Broadway and Commercial?
Well, I'm in town from Toronto for a couple of weeks. I got a notice that there was a petitioning to let war resistors, American war resistors, stay in Canada. So thought I'd come down and give the campaign a hand by talking to other people about why it's important to make sure that the American war resistors are granted status in Canada.
Why is it important?
Well, it's for various reasons. One, I think just on a human rights angle, that people that refuse to serve in illegal wars should have safe havens outside of countries that start those illegal wars. And I think Canada, had a tradition of that in the 1960s with Vietnam draft dodgers and things being allowed to come into Canada. Unfortunately, we now have a government that doesn't quite see things that way. So I think it's important for that reason on a human rights angle. Two, I think it's important for an anti-war stance to support soldiers that stand up and refuse to go fight in these wars. So I think it's very important on that basis.
How do you explain that we would be opposing war in the States, but we're waging war in Afghanistan?
Well, I'm also opposed to the war in Afghanistan, and I've done a lot of petitioning, and I know from just doing the same sort of activities, just see what people think about the war in Afghanistan, that a majority of Canadians do think it's a wrong war. Unfortunately, we have a government, just like the one in the United States, that refuses to listen to the popular sentiment. So I would also hope that, there's activists in other countries, should Canadian soldiers refuse to serve in Afghanistan, that would grant them some safe sanctuary if they needed it.
This is a traveling display that has a marker across for every one of the U.S. troops who have died in Iraq since the invasion in 2003. And the current number is 3,462. It's a powerful thing. These are kids, a lot of them 19, 20, 21, 22, 25-year-olds. Yeah, these are our kids right here. We have a sign over there that lists the number of Americans dead along with the number of dead from the coalition, and in there we include the figure of 655,000 Iraqis, which is a very approximate figure. Nobody really knows how many Iraqi citizens have died since the Americans invaded in 2003. The magnitude of Iraqi deaths is just enormous, and these markers and crosses here just are pale in comparison to the number of Iraqi citizens who have died.
I'm collecting signatures for a petition to allow American war resistors to stay in Canada so they don't have to fight in Iraq.
Why should they not go back and answer to their own government?
It's an illegal war. It was a war of aggression without the support of the United Nations, and the reasons for the war were lies. And soldiers have a responsibility not to fight in illegal wars.
All right, and you want Canada to accept them as immigrants?
I want Canada to accept them as immigrants and allow them to stay here. I came here to avoid the war in Vietnam in 1968.
You're originally an expatriate American.
That's true. I am. And I'm proud of it.
Joined the army. High school is through. I didn't know what else